Our first speaker today is Dr. Carly Lam on the topic of new myopia control spectacles, DIMS. Dr. Lam.
Thank you. So good day, thank you. I am pleased to be here today. I should have given this talk a year ago, but due to the pandemic, I'm very cherished this opportunity to come back to this conference. And today I'm going to explain and share some of the latest findings of the DIMS myopia control lens. I think you all know that myopia control is a big topic now for eye care professionals. So prevalence of myopia has been described to have increased in the last few decades. And in this world map of prevalence among the adolescents, myopia in Asia has hit the highest to be around 80%. And while the prevalence in Europe, America, and Africa was found to be less than 50% in general. But there has also been studies reported an increase in this European and American population. So for example, in the United Kingdom, data from the NICE study in 2016 reported myopia prevalence was more than doubled over the last 50 years among the young adults. And clearance and children are becoming myopic at a younger age. We also know that the reason why myopia should be better controlled because there are impacts in visual, psychological, financial, and economical aspects. Most of all, pathological myopia leading to visual impairment in later life and could end up with low vision and poor quality of life. I always remember Peggy in the book, The Lord of the Flies by William Golding. So among those kids fighting for survival, there was Peggy. He was very myopic. Sir Golding described that his thick spectacle lenses and frame had made a deep pink V on Peggy's nose bridge. He needed his glasses to see to be useful among the other boys, but when his glasses were smashed, he became useless. He became so vulnerable and eventually did not survive and lost his life. So this story always reminds me that myopia brings unnecessary weakness to a person, and that if we can stop myopia, we should. And animal models have confirmed that refractive development is linked to the visual guided feedback process in the developing eye, and integration of simultaneous multiple defocus during eye growth determine the ultimate refractive status. So most of these studies reported myopic defocus, and that is an image formed in front of the retina, can retard eye growth and retard myopia progression. So we translate the animal findings into useful myopia control methods. The first step of our lens design was a contact lens, and we call this the defocus incorporated soft contact lens, or simply the DIS lens. So this is a contact lens with concentric rings, and that the center zone is for correcting refractive error. Then there is the first myopic defocus range of plus 2.5 diopter. Then the rings alternate between the correction power and the myopic defocus power. So this pattern provides clear vision for the wearer and at the same time induce myopic defocus to retard eye growth. So in the 2-year RCT, the overall retardation effect of the DIS lens was around 25%, and these two figures show the changes in myopia progression and axial length over the 2 years. So we did not see any plateau effect during the 2 years. And we also noted that there was a dosage effect with the time of myopic defocus exposure. And in this figure, we plotted the contact lens wearing time versus the change in the ocular refraction. So for children having worn the DIS lens for more than 8 hours, the retardation effect reached 60% with a mean difference of half a diopter. So this is our very first initial trial. And then, of course, there are limitations for children to wear contact lenses. So we try to develop a spectacle lens with the same principle. In the design of a myopia control spectacle lens, instead of the concentric ring, we now use multiple lenslets. So in this figure on the right shows the design of the spectacle lens, and we call this the DIMS lens or the DIMS technology. So at the mid-periphery, there are around 400 lenslets of 1 millimeter in diameter and power of plus 3.5 diopter. And they surround the central zone, which is for distance correction. So the total area between the two power zones is about 50-50 ratio. So these children are wearing the lenses, and those multiple segments are so fine that they are hardly noticeable, unless that we shine a light onto the lens, and that will cast a shadow and show the honeycomb pattern. So the multiple segments cast blur images onto the retina. So the degree of blur depends on the distance of the target and also the position of the target being seen. So when the light ray goes through the center where there is no myopic defocus lenslets, the image is very clear as indicated by the letter E shown in A. At the other eccentric positions, where light rays go through both the distance correction and the lenslets, the blur image overlaps the clear image, and it is dependent on the distance of the target. So you can see the blur level from box B to D that is related to the distance of viewing when accommodation is not active. So there is a slight compromise of visual acuity when using this method for myopia control, but in our 2 years RCT, all the children get used to the lens very well. And we have come across questions on whether the DIMS lens is the same as the progressive addition or bifocal lenses, that they both use hyperopic addition as a mean for myopia control. So in fact, the mechanism is quite different. So PALs works on ocular accommodation system with the purpose to enhance accommodative response and also reduce the lack of accommodation. So the hypothesis behind is to ensure seeing accurately and clearly and reduction in accommodative lag so that myopia progression can be retarded. But in contrast, the myopic defocus in the DIMS lens is not for seeing at all, but just at the background, stimulating a constant blur. So we tested the accommodative function at the start of the lens wear and also after 2 years of the RCT, and there is no effect on the amplitude of accommodation and the lack of accommodation when comparing those children wearing the DIMS and those wearing the single vision group. So likewise, undercorrection aims to work on the accommodative system. So myopia control effect in the pairs and also undercorrection was found to be minimal. So having the lens design, we also conducted a clinical trial to evaluate the efficacy of myopia control. The trial was also 2 years and replicate the same clinical protocol as the DIS lens. So children were asked to assign to wear DIMS lens or single vision lens. So psychoplegic refraction and axial length were measured. The primary outcome would be the changes in these two parameters. So subjects recruited for the trial are Hong Kong ethnic Chinese children aged between 8 to 13 with aspherical equivalent refraction between -1 to -5, and they have no prior use of any myopia control methods. So here are the 2 years results at every 6 months, changes in the myopic progression as well as changes in the axial elongation. So the DIMS group is presented by the green line and the control group is presented by the orange line. It is obvious that DIMS group had a slower myopia progression and also less increase in axial length over the 2 years. So the overall efficacy of the DIMS lens was 59% in terms of myopia control and 60% in terms of reduction in axial length. These results are comparable to recent trials in ortho-K and contact lens, but among the best among treatment effects in spectacle lens. So we conclude from this 2 years RCT that wearing the DIMS lens can significantly control myopia by about 60%. And the visual functions were not different between the single vision and the single vision control and the DIMS lens group. And DIMS lens wear had no adverse effect on the measured visual functions. So at the end of the trial, we offer our participants to continue the follow-up and lens wear. And this time, all children were assigned to wear the DIMS lens. So the group of children from the control group started to wear DIMS lens, and this group is retitled as control to DIMS group. And the same measurement and protocol was adopted, and this includes the axial length measurement as well as the myopia measurement. So children were now 2 years older, and the criteria for ocular refraction was not applied in the follow-up study. So these two tables show the comparison of the subject number between the 2-year RCT and the 3rd-year follow-up. 75% of the subjects remain in the follow-up study. The table on the right showed the 3rd-year enrollment and dropout numbers. So at the end of the 3rd year, 65 subjects from the DIMS group completed the study, and 55 subjects from the original control completed the 1-year follow-up. So the clinical results of this 3 years follow-up is mainly divided into 2 parts. We will present both the original DIMS group and the control to DIMS group. Children wearing the DIMS lens continue to show good myopia control effect. The annual changes in myopia progression were on average minus 0.18 diopter. And this progression rate was quite linear over the 3 years, and these results could imply that myopia control effect was sustained at around 50 to 60%. And for the children who were original control group, the myopia control effects was quite significant. From this figure, in the first 2 years, while wearing the single vision lenses, the progression rate was like 0.49 and 0.38 diopter in the first and the 2nd year. But after switching to the DIMS lens, myopia progression was down to only minus 0.05 diopter for the 3rd year. This figure shows the axial length changes in the DIMS group, and again, very steady and consistent increase in the annual axial length of around 0.1 millimeter per year. And in the control to DIMS group, the 3rd year changes was 0.12 millimeter as compared to the 2 years changes of 0.29 and 0.2 millimeter. So children once switched to wear DIMS lens benefited with myopia control significantly. And at the end of the 3rd year, 21% of children in DIMS group did not have any myopia progression. And these findings were similar to the 2-year trial for the DIMS group, but single vision group only had 7% of no myopia progression. So in terms of axial length, 40% of children in the DIMS group did not have any increase in axial length, and again, similar to 2-year RCT, and as compared to the none in the single vision group in the RCT. So in conclusion, for children wearing the DIMS lens for 3 years, myopia control effect sustained. Both myopia progression and axial length changes were similar to the previous 2 years RCT, and therefore the estimated efficacy to be around 60%. And for children who switch to DIMS lens, myopia control effect is present and in similar trend to the age-matched DIMS lens wearers. So DIMS lens offers a non-invasive, convenient treatment for myopia management. I will like to declare that the information in this talk is based on a collaborative research sponsored by Hoya Corporation, and the lens is co-developed and patented with Hoya Corporation for myopia control in young children. I also like to acknowledge the project team for the DIMS project, and thank you.
You talked a little bit about like the blur looking when the subjects are looking off axis, but could you tell us a little bit about what they were telling you about their visual quality when they were looking through the periphery of the lens? What were they reporting to you?
Yes, there is a slight reduction in visual acuity at both high contrast and low contrast and under photopic and mesopic condition. But the overall changes is like a couple of letters. And so it is hardly noticeable. Mm-hmm. So there are three papers supporting the visual performance of the DIMS lens is acceptable. So I can share those 3 papers.
And it looks like Jim Schwagerling has a question.
So just a couple questions. So I would expect compliance with spectacles to be better than contact lenses in this group. Is that traditionally true?
Yes, so the dropout rate is much less, and children tend to wear the spectacle lens like for the whole day from 12 to 15 hours. But with contact lenses, the dropout rate was very high, about 50 to 60% stay on, so about 40% drop out. And the wearing time also is an issue. So some only wear the lens for a short period of time, and some manage longer. So, but we have a range of from 4 to about 10 hours. So that's why, and it is because of this change that we able to find out the dosage effect. But if the kids are not wearing the contact lenses, they don't really get the myopia control stimulation.
Sure. And then are there any sort of external cosmetic issues? So if somebody's looking at a child with the lenses on, do they see the lens array? And
no, this is a very nice design.
Right. So
you could see, yeah, it is like 1 millimeter diameter and 400 of them, but they only raise a little bit. Mm-hmm. So it's like 1 millimeter raised comparing to the front surface. So it's not noticeable at all. If I give you and did not tell you that it is a DIMS lens, you would not notice.
Great.
So you
this is really exciting. So I think this is really a way to go. So
what were the ages again of your children that enrolled?
The children are 8 to 13. Because we pick this age that it is the highest progression rate because they are hitting the puberty. So axial length, whole general growth, all this will accelerate the axial length. So we're hoping to get the best myopia control effect.
So I was going to ask something similar to it. How is the age? Did you notice a difference between younger versus older subjects?
Yeah, so because the time is limited, I did not show the age relationship. But in fact, from our 2 years RCT, we noted that the younger children were not benefited as the older children. So young children still continue to have high myopia progression. We still need to find out the reason why. So, but this lens is now in the market for 2 years. So, and we have 1,000 data in our clinic that we are going to look at whether the lens will benefit the younger age group.
Thank you.